Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm here today with a guest, Michael Goldin, the co-host of Good Morning Hospitality. Michael, welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Jamie, pleasure to be on. It's we see you once a month at GMH, but honored to be a part of your show this week.
Yeah, and I joke at the beginning because while you're the co-host of Good Morning Hospitality, you wear, 10 different hats within the industry. Advisor to many companies. You are co-founder of Storied Collective, of Nook, you've formerly been part of Rented and NoiseAware. You've been around this industry for so long. I know I've learned so much from you over the past couple years. Could you just start with giving the audience a bit of your history in the industry and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't have more gray hairs than I do. 2 kids, 2 startups, and being involved in the vacation rental industry in 2023. But it's been a journey. Yeah, I started it Rented in 2014 or 15.
Mhm.
Was there for 4 years, led biz dev. We pivoted a few times along the way, and ultimately, I ended up over with Andrew Schultz and Dave Kraus over at NoiseAware. Had a really great time over there. The product at the time was very early. No one really knew the benefits and perks to it. And through a few strategic partnerships that I help arrange with Booking and Vrbo and Airbnb, noise monitoring really became the norm and mainstream. So it was really fun to watch the evolution from what the heck is this? Is this thing listening to me? To headlines of house parties everywhere, and we being the only solution on the market at the time, at least. So did 4+ years over at NoiseAware, and then had an opportunity with a contact of mine that was at Airbnb at the time, or former Airbnb, early days, Justin Hauge. And I had just gotten back from a trip with my wife to Ireland. We stayed in a couple castles coming out of COVID. We were literally the first plane that landed after Ireland opened up to Americans. And so the like border customs agents were asking us, like, are you allowed to be here yet? And we're like, yep, today's the day. And I swear in Ireland, we were the only Americans for the entire week that we were over there. It was really cool. But stayed in some castles, had incredible experiences, came back, was telling Justin about it when I was in Miami for a work trip. And he was in the process of planning his wedding at a manor house in the UK as well. And we ran into similar problems of, this is a really cool asset class, a really interesting niche, but there were certainly no standards. And because so many of these houses were passed down from family to family, hospitality was kind of in their genes, but it
Mhm.
wasn't, no one really knew hospitality. And so that kind of gave us a unique opening to take a soft brand approach similar to design hotels or Relais Chateau and formulate a niche for castles and manor houses.
So when you say soft brand and coming from the hotel industry, I've got a sense of a soft brand, but for our listeners, so are you operating these properties, or what aspect for these owners, operators are you solving for them?
Yeah, so soft brand, if you look at a Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, those are the flags. Those are hard
Mhm.
brands. And the hard brands tell you how big your room has to be, what thread count of sheets you have to have, what type of TV you have in each room. A soft brand gets kind of that scale of a hard brand without telling you how to do things.
Mhm.
So soft brands, SLH, preferred hotels, I mentioned design and relay. They all have a through line and they have brand standards that you have to hit, certain
Yep.
key counts, certain ADRs, certain aesthetic, look, feel, service offerings, etc. But the reason why people join them is because if you're a single independent site, you don't have a very big marketing budget to go to industry conferences, to do paid advertising, to have a sales team that does outreach for groups, tours, events, things like that. And so you join kind of a collaborative in this case that there's a lot of properties similar to yours
Mhm.
in which everyone can benefit. And what's been really cool, especially as of really recently at Storied, when members throw in leads that they can't monetize for one reason or another, they're too big, too small, too expensive, whatever, those can circulate to other members within the network or the brand, and everybody ends up winning because these leads are highly valuable. I mean, our average ticket price is £17,000, so a single lead can really make or break a month. And so it's really cool to see. The industry hasn't really worked that way. There's sometimes some weird rivalries between these families, but all in all, the ones that we've ended up working with are really fantastic people. They're open-minded. It's kind of the new generation taking over the family estate. I think our oldest is 16 generations back in one family tree, one last name. So, we're taking a market that hasn't had professional hospitality applied to it before and helping professionalize it a little bit further and making it known to Americans that you can actually book these places for your company retreats. So, AirDNA, I know you've got a good team size. The UK is a good middle ground for Spain and the US to have a corporate offsite. So let me
Yeah,
know if you
so
wanna stay.
I'm those type of events, because I assume you're talking, and most of them are what, small, mid-sized type hotels? Like, can you describe the type of properties that you guys are
Yeah.
distributing? And how do you go about finding guests, finding these, like, is it your own direct website marketing? Like, how are you filling these properties?
Yeah, so, a few layers there. Our houses range from 7 bedrooms on the small side
Mhm,
to being able to sleep in the 50s or 60s. So they do kind of scale pretty heavily.
mhm,
Most of our houses have additional dwelling units on site, whether it's a farmhouse conversion, a gatehouse, a guest house, whatever. So they can typically sleep 20 plus. The typical stay is going to be 3 or 4 nights. It's like a 6 month lead time is average, and they're big wedding spots. If it's in Scotland, then it's golf or whiskey tourism. Often, if it's England, it's history or just group travel, getting outside of London, often for the first time. And then what's been really interesting lately is this retreat segment that people host, these micro retreats, whether it's we've had golf retreats, we've had influencer retreats, health, art, photography, spiritual retreats. And our houses are really well suited for all of those segments. If you're
mhm.
interested in photography, then here's the 5 different eras that this house went through, from Victorian to Edwardian to Georgian, right? And then I would say our average, finger to the wind, acreage per site is over 1,000 acres. So they're vast amounts of lands that you can hike, do foraging, explore the gardens. A lot of them have formal, British style gardens. So it's really a cool experience, especially for retreats, getting outside of city centers and all the distractions. And we've done retreats. I host one every year, and when we do it in a city, after the last activity at night, half the crowd breaks out and goes out until 3 a.m. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you just end up, and we did this at Gilmerton House in April, you just end up shooting flaming arrows off the front lawn and having a great time. It's just incredible. So the experiences that go along with that are really going to be left with the employees or the retreat goers for a very long time.
So Demi, the CEO of AirDNA, I know you're listening to the podcast. A great idea for our company offsite come this fall.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of our houses have Michelin star chefs that come with it too, so you're not gonna be lacking in the food and bev department either. So, would love to help you out.
And so getting more into the distribution, and because I assume that's the main service you're providing for these properties? Is it primarily and you promoting the Storied Collection website and getting people going and inquiring there? Or and is it and you calling on all these companies and sort of pitching it? Like what is that process? Is it hand to hand combat out there with your flaming arrows, getting people to come into the property?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. None of our houses, to my knowledge, do any outbound efforts,
Okay.
which means when we do them, they can be highly fruitful
Mm.
because retreat organizers, at least in the exclusive use segment, are not used to getting contacted about, hey, we'd love to invite you to stay at one of our manor houses.
Mhm.
So that definitely works. But we've picked a niche that there's no other players, so we can rank really high in SEO really quickly. And we've been around for right at about a year now, and we're ranking very high in a lot of the key word searches that we're aiming for. So that's another one. And then we've done some very strategic marketing with a couple. The American Viscountess is what it's called,
Mhm.
but Julie Montague married into the Montague family, which is in the Earl of Sandwich line, and have a beautiful estate called Mapperton. But they've got an awesome YouTube channel that anyone that's interested in historic houses and castles and manor houses in the UK subscribes to her channel. And so we've done some advertising with them, and very niche, very targeted market. But again, something that none of our individual houses could afford on their own, but as part of a group, the shared costs, we're able to do that for everyone's benefit.
Yeah, so how many units, listings, rooms are you guys up to now?
So we've got 12 castles. The average bedroom count is 12. The starting price is just over £250 per bedroom per night. Now, that's not peak season, not weekend, but I know how you love to dynamically price. Most of our houses still price in an antiquated way. We want to slowly pull all of our houses towards being a little more tech forward. And the ones that have really embraced it, shout out to Dunsky Estate in Port Patrick, Scotland, but they nail the technological side and it shows in their numbers. So it is something that we will continue to adopt and slowly adopt, but it definitely pays off.
Is that something you guys will be able to help sort of craft for these homes and being part of the Storied Collection of sort of showing best practices of like how others are doing it, how you think they should be doing it, given your sort of vast experience in the industry?
Yeah, so couple points there. We've got our first members retreat in a month from today, actually, in Dublin. So we're bringing all of our house owners to Dublin for 2 days. And the thought is really, as a brand, the sum is greater than the parts. And when we can get them all to know each other and trust one another and share leads back and forth and share ideas, and the community as a whole is going to be better. We also have a relationship with Altito, who manages a couple of the houses, and that's been really fruitful. We don't do the boots on the ground, and currently we don't do the pricing or guest communications. We're top of funnel lead gen, branding, marketing, and then we send it as soon as the lead is warm. We send it to the houses. So Altito has been a great partner. We've referred some business their way, and likewise. So kind of a collaboration with what Justin and I have learned in our 20 plus years in the industry, and what Altito does on a day-to-day basis, can be quite fruitful for some of these houses.
Yeah, so 12 listings, that's given the sort of scale of these properties is seems like a lot in a very short period of time since you launched. So, and I know you're very thoughtful about these sort of things. Like what do you see as the opportunity? Is it 20, 30, 50 homes in the UK and Ireland? Is it and expanding throughout all of Europe? And how do you guys see the opportunity in this castle space?
Yeah, it's very niche, right? We're not looking at a TAM of 10 million properties.
Right.
That said, it is green fields for us, and there's no one else really kind of playing in this. And it's an interesting segment for the big hotel brands because they don't have a groups driven engine.
Hmm.
And, you know, I have a thesis that will get scooped up in 4 or 5 years by one of the flags. But our goal is to get to brand the top 5 to 10% in each country.
Hmm.
So in the UK, I mean, you've got all the data. In the UK, there's about 4 to 500 houses that are open to the public. So we're looking at 30 to 40 is what we're aiming for. In France, there's 12, 1300, so we can get up to 100 in France. Italy, Spain have similar amounts, 5, 600.
Hmm.
So, we started in the UK and Ireland because of ease, language, etc. But I'm actually onboarding someone that's going to help us in France right after this recording. So, we certainly are going to be expanding into additional markets. We don't want to diminish or dilute the brand. We could probably be at 20 properties by now, but they would kind of hurt the overall quality. So we've visited a few, turned some away. We've had some great ones, but the owners just weren't good fits for, what we're trying to build as a community that everyone's helpful, beneficial, kind, etc. And so yeah, I think we've got a long way to go. We're still in the very early innings. We've learned a lot. We've made mistakes. We're at 12 now. We should get to 14 by the end of the year if we get a couple of these contracts signed. Our target was 15, so we're just shy of that. But we've learned kind of the formula and what size and style houses are most interesting to our clients on the guest side.
So on property acquisition, is it literally just that you've got a list of 400 homes and you just figure out who owns them and you're just ticking them off one by one, almost like you're a property manager and a vacation destination that you've got the list of homes in your city, you know who owns them, and you just have to make
Kinda.
contact and make your pitch?
Kinda, but as you could imagine, a lot of these folks are pretty, I don't wanna say secluded, but pretty insular. They're
Mhm.
hard to get in touch with, right? They literally are, you know, X number of seats away from the crown in some cases. We've got the property of the Duke of Buccleuch, his childhood home in Scotland. He's rumored to have something like 250,000 acres of land. He's one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest guy in Scotland. Beautiful estate. We've got one. He has 4 others on the acreage that we'd love to get at some point eventually. But he doesn't just answer the phone, right? You have to kind of network your way in with these folks and build a good reputation. And that's really, we could go faster, but we want to make sure we're very thoughtful in doing things the right way because reputation matters. And one of our early investors pretty much said, like, you build this to be a club for this type of person, and they're going to invite their friends.
Mhm.
And we've started to see that, which is super cool. I was on the phone with the Earl of Oxford on Friday last week. There was a referral from another one of our houses that is an Earl of somewhere else. So it's a fascinating world. How I ended up in it is a little mind blowing, but it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so maybe zooming out a bit, and now that you've got this view of the hotel industry, you've got this view of the short-term rental industry. I think there's a lot of other sorts of sort of niche hospitality that you've been sort of moving into. Like, do you see these industries converging into just broader hospitality, or do you see them maybe
They already have.
diverging? Yeah.
No, I think a big convergence will happen at some point, and I don't know exactly how it looks. It's tough. The Marriott route is tough. Homes and Villas trying to brand a house on Hilton Head. I love the way that you can
That's also
burn.
managed by Vacasa and owned by yeah, like
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that's how the hotel industry works. There's owner, there's management, there's flag, and there's investors, right? So there's already 4 silos, which is no different than how vacation rentals ultimately work now. But often there just isn't a flag associated with it. There's just a management company that might have a bit of a local brand, but no national or global presence.
mhm,
I do think there will be more to come on the hotel blending. We've already kind of seen it with Marriott announcing their apartments brand to take on the short term rentals in urban markets. But it's going to be tough for anyone to outcompete a vacation rental company in 30A or Hilton Head, because people that go there are families, and they don't want to share a hotel room. Like I'm taking my family for the first time to a single hotel room tomorrow night. So I'm a bit worried about it. We're already not sleeping. I've got a 4-year-old and a 3-month-old. So we'll see how this goes, but we're just doing one night. But there's a lot of benefits to the vacation rental side of things. And travelers, once they're exposed to it, want to continue to pursue that. So I know there's going to be more and more convergence. And I think this niche branding is a great route to kind of pair the two up. And if I may, I'll share a broader thesis and something else that I've been working on. Since Airbnb rolled out categories a year or two ago, maybe you know exactly when that happened, but I love it. And we see it at Storied all the time, where people, they don't know where they want to go. They say, I've got a group of 15 people. Where can I stay in April? And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, like, doesn't matter to us. We just want to stay in a castle. Great. Well, here's, price points and sizes and all of that. So people are actually starting to travel by categories. So I've got this broader thesis that, there's two ways to make money. You can bundle like Airbnb did, or you can unbundle. And so I'm on a mission to unbundle and brand the top 5 to 10% of the categories, and ultimately, hopefully, sell those off to the hotel flags that can then basically bring pseudo short-term rentals with more of a hotel feel and kind of bridge the gap. It's going to be a great guest experience. So Castles and Manor houses was first with Storied, and then there's the outdoor hospitality, outdoor hotels, landscape hotels, glamping, whatever you want to call it, tree houses, cabins. That's the next category, and we're calling it Nook. So we're going to be launching in January, so coming soon. And we've got some really fantastic properties that are truly one of a kind, Instagrammable, great experience, blending true hospitality with nature, which is a big push. And I think after COVID, people realize we're meant to be in nature after being locked in cities for so long. It really is good for your soul. And so there's so many similarities between castles and a glamping site in the middle of nowhere. It's a bit wild, but one of my investors in Storied, the Pontius family, Dave Pontius, was the COO at Hilton, COO at Blue Green, CEO at RCI. So deep hospitality roots, 40 years in resorts. And he's wanted to attack the outdoor hospitality space for a long time. And I think we're timing it really well. There's a huge rise, and you can see it in the AirDNA numbers, a huge rise in the desire for travelers to want to go to glamp sites and the number of glamping units that are becoming available year over year. I mean, I'm talking with 20 or 30 that are going to be opening up next year alone. So it's definitely a hot segment within hospitality, but usually in the middle of nowhere, usually single site, usually owned or operated by someone that doesn't come from hospitality. It's a passion project. It's family land, whatever. So the similarities are actually remarkable. And now that I've learned a lot from Storied, I can help rinse and repeat and make this thing happen a little bit faster. So
Yes,
that's coming soon.
that's a really interesting, and one, the sort of unbundling the categories. And I've got some questions further about that, but just digging in a bit further on Nook, it was a really popular play during COVID on sort of real estate Twitter, was around buying RV parks and converting them, maybe making them a little bit nicer, adding some amenities, trying to essentially double the rate.
Yeah.
I don't get a sense this is the play that you're doing, though. You're going off after what, the high end of glamping? Like, am I gonna,
Yeah,
and
call it
what
4 and 5-star, right? And glamping is a dirty word to a lot of our properties.
yeah.
In AirDNA data, they're probably going to be lumped in as glamping units, but a yurt in the middle of nowhere could have a dirt floor, or it could have heat, air conditioning, running water, a fridge, a kitchenette, right? So it can really kind of run the scale there. And yes, we do have standards on running water and bathrooms and units. And for us, again, similar to Storied, events and retreats are a big component of our strategy. So it's got to have event space. Doesn't have to have food and bev on site, although most of ours do or are building it soon.
Mhm.
But it has to be able to bring in a chef or catering. So a good group activity. And to your point, we've seen some brands, and I won't call any out specifically, but the repeat business rate for one of those COVID darling properties is in the single digits, which is remarkably low.
Mhm.
Once you've stayed in an Airstream in the Poconos, you're probably not going to go stay in an Airstream in at Tahoe, right? You've kind of checked that box. So we want kind of a variety of unique, more one of a kind than just an Airstream type of properties where people can check the box, but they stay within the Nook network.
Okay. But on the consistency and expectations that go around with the brand, and it's a 4 or 5-star experience that someone's gonna get with Nook.
Yeah, it's not the 150 a night ADRs. So we're gonna be double that typically or more.
And again, and on your distribution seems like something that would go over really well with influencers, different ways to get
Yep.
that brand out there, get the types of units and the experience that you'd get with Nook as opposed to booking somewhere else.
100%. And that's an interesting kind of delineation between the properties that are really good at hospitality. They come from the hotel world, typically suck at social media, but these people that have built their passion projects, crush it. We have 11 key site in Texas that's got 50, 60,000 followers on Instagram. Like only a tiny fraction of that could have ever stayed in it because it's only been open for 2 years, but it's aspirational. And those are the types of properties that we want. We want people to ooh and ah over the imagery. And then when they get there, they can really just relax in nature. We sent out a press stay to that site over Thanksgiving, and she saw deer in the running by the units while sitting in the hot tub drinking champagne. Like just cool experience, right? You're not gonna get that at Marriott in downtown Atlanta.
But it sounds like you're making outdoor accessible to the masses too, of you're not gonna be sleeping on the floor with an air mattress.
No, it's got to be comfortable. And part of that's me projecting myself into a brand. My brother can go sleep in the woods for a month, right, and be super happy.
Yeah.
If I don't have air conditioning in a bed, I'm gonna be miserable the next day, right? I'm happy to spend all day outside hiking and fishing or whatever, but I do want to go back and get a good night's sleep. And so, I think so many people have just thrown up tents over the years, especially coming out of COVID. There is no consistency. And it's similar to castles. There's so many properties that are just tired, worn out, haven't been updated. The service is terrible. You send an inquiry in and it's a month before you hear anything back. It's just not good service, and that's not what's going to win. And so those are not the types of properties that we want as part of Storied or as part of Nook.
So you've got Storied, you've got Nook. If you're willing to play along, I'm gonna run through some other categories on Airbnb just as we sit here, and I want your initial thoughts on whether
I'll
there's
give
an
you a
opportunity to brand it. Okay,
viable or not viable. Okay.
viable or not viable? Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tiny homes.
That can kind of be included in Nook if they're one of a kind. So,
All right.
yes,
Houseboats,
I wouldn't touch it.
caves.
Well, okay, houseboats or yachts.
Houseboats are not yachts. How
Okay.
Yeah.
I do think there's a play in the boating community, but
Uh-huh. Like, think boat on the canal in Amsterdam.
probably not. No, I wouldn't go after that.
All right, caves.
Even though I'm in some niches, I think that might be too niche, so not viable.
Towers.
If you can get enough key counts and develop them, it could be a really cool brand.
All right, last one, containers.
There's people doing really cool container stuff in the outdoor space, so I'm gonna lump that into Nook.
Okay, so
I'll give
it's
you a couple more that I think are pretty viable. How about
all
that?
right. Okay.
So wineries,
Yeah.
you got to think of how people travel as well, right?
Mhm.
What people seek when they travel. In castles, it's experiencing royalty. In Nook, it's the great outdoors. I think there's a play in surfing, in skiing, in golf, in wine. Beyond that, I personally don't know if I have it in me to start that many companies. Um, but I think those are kind of the next viable plays aside from what I'm already working on.
Okay. So bringing together properties in these locations that serve different use cases of great group homes for guys that want to go on or women to go on golf trips or ski outings, and where there's already a big presence of homes and vacation rentals, but pulling together a collection that and maybe the top tier and that serves different markets around the world.
Yeah, and I'd say we take maybe a slightly different approach that it could be more vacation rental style, it could be more hotel style,
Hmm.
but it's accommodations, right? You might travel with your family and it's 6 people, or you might travel with, a bachelor party and it's 15 people. You're gonna travel in different and experience different things with different group sizes. And some people prefer a house, some people prefer hotels. From a branding standpoint, I don't think that's a hard thing to bridge to gap. It's more of, can you rank really high in search, not competing with the OTAs because you've selected a niche and you really own that niche.
Yep.
And then do travel agents, do event planners think of you when they say, I want to, I'll give you another example. We're starting to have a name within the film industry in the UK because, oh, we hear you're the castle people. Like we need to film this. Do you have a period home from this, with this architecture? We had someone ask if we have any houses with a specific type of wallpaper. I had to Google what they were talking about. But you find a niche, and again, there's ways to make money of bundling and unbundling. And if you can be the go-to for that niche, I am betting there's a nice win on the other side.
But it sounds like the point is to unbundle Airbnb's categories and then not compete with Airbnb.
Yeah, no, we don't even list on Airbnb.
Yeah,
No.
because you wanna get the SEO, you wanna get the search and get people going direct with you before they even make it onto Airbnb and start searching, or maybe they get the inspiration off of Airbnb and then start Googling from there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a large part of how travelers travel anyway.
Mhm.
And we see it all the time. We could go to a wedding planner conference and then our houses all of a sudden get more wedding inquiries, the week later. They don't even come through us, which is fine because of how we've structured our business. We're not taking a percent of bookings that we drive. We're not an OTA, we're not a platform. We're a brand. So similar to Marriott, Marriott might take a small percentage for each booking they drive, but we're not in that game. We know, especially at the ticket price that we go after, it makes more sense to talk with the houses directly anyway, because they're going to know, is this room ADA compliant? What kind of food does the chef cook? They're going to know all the little ins and outs that are going to be important when someone's spending $20,000 on a weekend.
Yep. So getting to time now and sort of wrapping up the questioning, one of my favorite questions to ask guests, and I'm not going to let you leave without asking it, is around data. And I know you've got your multiple businesses. I know you keep up with industry performance very closely, given your news podcasts. But what data point do you follow? What do you think is most important to be thinking about in terms of either performance of the overall economy or just what's going on within our industry?
Man, it's a really tough one. I don't think you can look at any singular data point and draw any meaningful conclusions because they're all intertwined.
Mhm,
With Nook, is this trend continuing to grow? So like, is the category growing?
mhm.
Is a big thing. With Storied, are people traveling to Europe from the US,
Yep.
right? So now that said, ADRs occupancy rates, RevPARs, how many companies are still going to be around in 2 years. There's a lot of scary data points out there right now, but when the macro data points are so scary and a segment like outdoor hospitality is still growing and still growing so quickly, that's a place I want to be, right? So I don't have as many gray hairs as you do, but I don't have a beard. So that's, I'm sure if I had a beard, I would have more gray hairs. But when I joined the industry and I went to my first Verma, I'm not exaggerating one bit. There were fewer people in their 20s, like I was at the time, than there were people with walkers. And the industry has changed so much. And the rise and growth of short-term rentals over the past 10 years has been astronomical. And you guys have led the way with data and showing us that. I don't think the outdoor hospitality will be quite as big of a wave because it is still a niche, but it's still going to be a really big, cool wave. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, well, and I'm really excited to watch. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining and sharing with us. If I'm happen to have a castle in Europe or a luxury glamping site that maybe I'd want to list with you, how would I get in contact with you, and how would our listeners sort of follow along with your story?
Yeah, I'm fairly active. I don't blast stuff out every day, but I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. So that's gonna be the best way. I'd love to have personal chats. We're not, automating anything. It's very relationship driven for both Nook and Storied. And yeah, the members of each brand are going to be what drives the future of each brand. So we really want to have those good, solid personal relationships. And, I think that's what I've enjoyed so much about the hospitality industry as a whole. Globally, it's just so much fun to be a part of. And so, yeah, feel free to find me on LinkedIn directly and would love to chat.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining, Michael Goldin.